Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome. We are now starting the new Maimer for the year 5786. This morning's Maimer will be L'Ili Nishmas, for the elevation of the soul of my dear father-in-law who passed away over the holiday, whose name is Shmuel Yosef Litman ben Rav Avram Eliyahu. And may this Maimer bring him peace and repose. Also to give tzedakah before we start the Maimer. And you should have a tzedakah box at home. Put it into the pushka. If you don't have a tzedakah box, make yourself a tzedakah box. Here we go. Okay, we're starting now the Maimer Vayomer Hashem el Avram. Here we go. Vayomer Hashem el Avram lech lecha miyartzecha miladcha mesavicha el aretz asher reka. God tells Abraham, leave your land, leave your birthplace, leave your father's home, and go to the land where I shall show you. What does that mean according to Chassidus? There are two explanations. Pirush Aleph. The first is Shalicha delech lecha milmayla lamata. The first explanation is that this journey that Avraham Avinu is to take is from above to below. As we shall soon explain, that Avraham Avinu represents a very high intellect. Avram, an intellect that is beyond all comprehension, a very concealed, deep idea and comprehension and knowledge, which is beyond the grasp of the average human being. So God tells him, you should reveal this knowledge to the world. Let us see this inside. What is the meaning of Avram? Av is father. Father represents the first revelation of intellect, the lightning bolt, the concept, the idea, which is called Chokhmah. That is father. Similar to the seminal drop that has within it all the potential of the child. Ram means elevated, exalted. In other words, Avram means an intellect that is very exalted beyond comprehension. Seichel hanelam mikol rayin. The meaning of Avram is an intellect that is concealed and above and beyond all comprehension. Shulmai legam bebechinas chokhmah. It is even higher than the attribute of chokhmah, which we translate to mean intellect or the concept. Ki chokhmah, the concept, even though chokhmah is the beginning of all of the 10 sefirot, the 10 attributes, which are called koiches pnimiyim, which means that there's a light and a vessel, which means that one can comprehend it. So chokhmah, even though it's the beginning of intellect, it's the concept, yet it's something that a person can grasp. It is still on a state of revelation. Masha Enkin of Avram, in contrast to the name of Avraham, or Avram, which means Av, the intellect of Ram, that is very exalted, Huseichel Hanelam Bikorayin, is an intellect that is concealed from all comprehension. And this is explained in the teaching of the Tzemach Tzedek. The details of this concept, which is Omer Hashem el Avram lech lecha miyartzecha. And that is the meaning. God tells Abraham, I want you to leave your land. What does that mean? Where should you go? Where should you journey? This is the meaning that God tells Abraham, I want you to leave your deep intellect and bring it down to the rest of the world. Share this knowledge. Share these secrets. Share these ideas with the rest of the world. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't be inverted. On the contrary, go out there and change the world. And that's the meaning, you shall bring it down to the land. Ha'aretz, That is the attribute of Malchus, the 10th of the Sefirot. Malchus is kingship, revelation. Moisiv Asher, and he goes on to say that I will show you. What does that mean? Says the Rebbe, Beis Perushim. Here too, there are two explanations. Aleph Kipshutoi, one is literal. Shareka Koi Al Haaretz, I will show you the land, which is Bechinas Malchus, which is the attribute of Malchus. Malchus, he Bechinas Alma, this Gal Yolachin, Shareka. Therefore, it makes sense, I will show you the land, which literally, because land is Malchus, land is the 10th of the 10 attributes, and Malchus represents revelation, therefore it's consistent and it's synonymous. The land that I will show you means Malchus, which is revealed. The level of kingship which is available and in the state of revelation. That is the first interpretation. Pirush Habei, the second explanation, Shareka Koel Avram. The first explanation is, I will show you, represents the level of Malchus. The second explanation is, I will show you, represents Abraham. It goes on Abraham and Avram. In other words, Bechinas Seichel Hanele Mikol Rayon, representing the level of intellect which is concealed from all understanding. And that doesn't mean I will show you Erev Egla. I will show you and reveal it inside of you. In your essence. In other words, even though the attribute of Malchus, which is the 10th of the Sefiros and the lowest of the Sefiros, and is the polar opposite of intellect, and when it comes to intellect is the highest of all of them. However, when Avraham Avinu will go down into the land, into the world, into the level of Malchus, into the level of revelation, the Bechinas Malchus Amod is which is the polar opposite of intellect and the opposite of understanding. By coming down to the level of Malchus, coming down into the everyday world, participating and being amongst other human beings and other people. Through this, says God to Abraham, your level of intellect will be even greater. Your greatness and your essence will become revealed to the world. In other words, in other words, even your intellect, that was a level of Seichel Hanela, which was a concealed intellect. That was beyond all comprehension, even that will become even greater. That level of intellect that you wanted to hide, and that you wanted to protect, and that you wanted to keep for yourself, this will now become revealed to the whole world. But it's not going to become lost. On the contrary, your level of intellect will go higher, soar higher, that you will now have a greater comprehension. By explaining this to others, by teaching this to others, you will be gifted a greater and deeper comprehension of this intellect. You are afraid by sharing this with others that you will lose out. And this will become more debased and more physical. Says God to Avraham, on the contrary, by the fact that you share this knowledge with others, you will have a deeper comprehension and you will be able to find a deeper and more glorious and wondrous understanding of godliness and creation. Base. This concept that we spoke about, referring to Abraham's intellect, coming down, lech lecha, go down from your high level to the lowest levels. That is the journey. Go to the land where I will show you, make this reveal to everybody. And through this, Avram, your intellect will become even higher. This concept says the Rebbe in chapter number 2, this also represents the journey of every one of us, the journey of the soul into the body. This intellect that is performed through the soul, by the fact that it goes down to the lower worlds. And now your soul comes down to the world. So this concept, says the Rebbe, applies to every soul, that even though the soul is very high in heaven, the soul now has a journey. God tells the soul, Lech Lecha, go down from your high horse, go down from the higher worlds and enter into the human physical finite body. And you're concerned by going down, this will be a yerida. You're concerned by going down, this will be a descent for the soul. You should know, on the contrary, I will show you your essence. On the contrary, the soul will now be elevated to a higher level. Even the level of Yechidah, the level that was already one with God, the level of unity with God, the level of oneness, which is the 5th level of the soul, this too will now also have an aliyah. This too will be elevated to a higher level. Even though this 5th level of the soul, the highest level of the soul, which is called Yechidah. Why is it called Yechidah? Because, says the Rebbe, the Yosem Mikabeles Miyachid receives from the one, from the oneness, Shalochein Ein Shayach Shetia Kenegda Belumazeh. Bevoya Leslu, Kol Mokom Ayidei Shanashama Yides Lamato, Mi'igram Labiramikta Nasas Aliyagam Mechinas Yechidah Shaba. Why is it called Yachid? Because it receives only from God. And there is no powers of impurity that can in any way overwhelm it, or dissuade it, or in any way, God forbid, sever it from God. This highest level of Yechidah is truly one with God. It only receives its influence and its instructions from God Himself, and there's no other powers of impurity that can instruct it or influence it. So how much higher can you go? Says the Rebbe, however, when the soul comes down to this world, from the Igra Rama, from this high mountain, to this low valley, this causes an elevation. Also, in the level of Yechidah, the highest level of the soul. As this is explained in many other Mnemonics and teachings of the Rabbeim. And this concept has been explored and explained in other Hasidic discourses, and that is by the fact that the soul comes down to this world, to the lowest of levels. This causes an elevation in the soul. Even on the level of Yechidah, even on the highest level of the soul, this also now becomes elevated through the descent in this world. That's well understood. I've explained in many sikhs, b'inyan aliyah l'teira. Shaliyah u'b'chol chomesh ha'bechinis she'v'neshama nefesh ruach neshama chai Yechidah. And that is the idea of having an aliyah. When a person gets called to the Torah, we call it an aliyah. You become called up. Even though perhaps the bima, or where the Torah is being read, is not on a higher platform, not on a stage, yet we call this automatically an aliyah. Because what happens is, when you get called to the Torah, all 5 levels of the soul are being elevated. Shem Beis, Shem Gimel, Habachinis, Tachtim, and Shnayim, Shlishim. This represents all 3 different levels of the soul. which we speak about also and hinted in the Ark of Noach, which is Tachtiyim, Shniyim, Ushlishim, which is the bottom floor, the middle floor, and the higher floor, the Tevas Noach, alluding to the three levels of the soul, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and also Chai Yechid. As the Baal Shem Tov explains, come into the ark, because the ark of Noach is really a lesson in our service to God, every Jew, especially coming from the month of Tishrei. That after we finish the holidays, now, what's the job? What is the mission? What is our task? And that is V'Yakov holach l'darkoi. Jacob now goes on his way. What does that mean? Shegam shu holach l'darkoi gam minyoni harushos ubdiv nechoil. What is the way of Jacob? That is the business world. That is the everyday world. That even when you go into the everyday world and fulfill your daily tasks and routines, even there, what do? You bring godliness together with you. And furthermore, you fall into the turbulent waters of the sea, of the river, the currents, of the challenges of making a living, which totally schleps us away from Torah and Tefillah. We have no time to pray now, because why? We're too busy making a living. However, what is our mission? To jump into the ark. It's true you're in the business world. It's true you have to make a living. Jump into the ark. Jump into the ark of tefillah, of prayer. Jump into the ark of Torah. Make sure every day you have designated times to study Torah and pray. By doing so, not only will you be spared and saved from this flood, from this terrible turbulent waters, which God forbid can cause a person to drown. They say by going into the teva, by going into the ark, what happens? Says the Torah that the teva was lifted up to a degree that then the teva rested. In other words, by the fact that a person will take out time every day from work and from earning a living and study Torah and to pray, number one, he will be lifted up. You will be elevated. Your soul will be elevated. And number two, the teva, the actual ark, will find a place of rest. In other words, you will find tranquility. In this turbulent, crazy world, you will find a degree of sanity by the fact that you enter into the teva. From here we understand, and here the Rebbe says very clearly that these three levels, these three floors of the Teva of Noach represent the 5 levels of the soul. And here he explains it. The lowest level is Naran, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. The second floor is Chaya. And the third floor is Echida. So we have the 5 and the 3. The lowest level is the soul and the body. And then there's a level of soul which is beyond the body. And then there's the one that's totally connected with God. And this represents the 3 different floors in the Ark of Noach. And when this ark descends into the water, similarly, like the soul going into the body, if we will hide and we will run into the teva, then we will be spared from these turbulent waters, this confusion in the crazy world around us. And this is the same idea of Avram Avinu being told by God, go into the world, go into the land that I will show you, which is the level of Malchus. Even though for Avram Avinu, this great intellect, who wanted to sit all day and study Torah, for him to go out into the everyday world and to converse with people. For him, this was a yerida, a descent. Says God, no, through doing this, you will find your greatest joy and the deepest intellect. And furthermore, it's explained that Avraham Avinu going into the land is to draw down into Bi'ah, the three lower worlds, and furthermore, the physical world of Asiyah, this light and intellect of God, and this caused the Hachana. This brought about the introduction and the preparation for the world to be a recipient of the mitzvos, the 613 commandments that were given to the Jewish people at Sinai. Even though Avram's task and Avram Avinu's mission and Avram Avinu's commandment and responsibility was to go down into the world of Malchus, to go down into the world of kingship, to go down into the world of Biyah, to go down into the world of Asiyah, of action, this physical world, and to remove himself from the highest worlds of intellect, because God needed Avram Avinu to prepare the world for the Torah, to prepare the world for physical deeds, like putting on Tefillin and lighting Shabbos candles, giving charity. However, God says to Avram Avinu, you should know, in truth, by you going down, you're going to go even higher, to a higher place, a greater level of intellect, a greater level of understanding. And similarly, to connect this with the passing of my father-in-law, Rabbi Plotkin, that by the fact that he came down to this world and studied Torah and did mitzvahs and helped Jews and was a shliach, etc., through this now his soul goes to a much higher place. And in truth, this is every day, this is the daily routine of the soul. The soul comes down into the body, you say, thank you Hashem. And if we're going to sleep, we say the Shema. And this once again elevates the soul back to Almighty God. Okay, we're going to stop right over here. Any questions?
Just to say thank you. That was amazing right after the holidays.
Okay, thank you for that. And I appreciate everyone joining. I know it was a big holiday and a lot of praying and eating and studying. But now to come back the day after the holiday for a Maimer is truly a blessing.
Yes.
And it is truly a compliment to all of you who joined us this morning. So to bless everybody with an amazing year, V'Yakov Holach L'Darkoi. When you go back to your path, to have tremendous prosperity, tremendous wealth, tremendous blessing and success in everything that you do, and be like Avram, be like Abraham, reveal your essence to the world, reveal these deep secrets to the world around you, to your friends, to your neighbors, to your family. Don't be afraid, but do it with Avram. What does that mean? Do it like Avram. Avram means kindness. Avram means love. Reveal the intellect with love. So thank you for joining, everybody. Have an amazing, blessed day.